Good day, Crime Talk aficionados. It is Sunday, and that means we are bringing you the weekly recap, or the best of Crime Talk during the week of February 23rd, 2026, all conveniently located in one location. That's right. You are welcome. We hope you enjoy the show, and remember, the Constitution matters.
All right, lawyer.
That's right. Nick Reiner. And he said something through his attorneys, but it's also important what he didn't say. We'll talk about that in just a second. So Nick Reiner, obviously the 32-year-old son of acclaimed filmmaker Rob Reiner and his wife Michelle, entered a not guilty plea today for 2 counts of first-degree murder with special circumstances in the death of his parents. Now, the arraignment took place at the Clara Shortridge Foltz Criminal Justice Center in downtown Los Angeles. Now, for those who don't know or don't recall, the victims, Rob Reiner, who is 78, and his wife, Michelle, who's 68, were discovered stabbed to death from multiple sharp force injuries inside their Brentwood residence on the evening of December 14th of last year. Now, their daughter, Romy, then 28, found the bodies after the couple failed to appear for a scheduled appointment. Nick Reiner was arrested shortly afterward near the University of Southern California, and he's remained in custody without bail at the detention facility since that date. Now, Reiner appeared in court with a shaved head and facial hair, represented by Deputy Public Defender Kimberly Green, after Alan Jackson withdrew from the case back in January. Now, Jackson has previously stated publicly that his former client was not guilty. Now, mental health considerations are expected to feature prominently in the defense, given Reiner's documented history of schizoaffective disorder and schizophrenia, along with reports that prescribed medications may have contributed to his erratic behavior. So Reiner's siblings, Jake and Romy, have not attended any recent hearings and have been observed resuming routine activities in the Malibu area. Jake was recently seen coaching a youth baseball team and running errands with his girlfriend, while Romy handled personal tasks with her dog. In a joint statement following the earlier hearing, the siblings expressed complete trust in the judicial process and requested their privacy. Now, prosecutors have not yet announced whether they will seek the death penalty, and a preliminary hearing is now scheduled for April 29th, 2026. So what is the significance of this? Now, remember, Alan Jackson came out and said, oh, my client's not well. He's, made everybody think not guilty by insanity. Maybe he's not even competent to even enter a plea of not guilty. But what didn't take place? No not guilty by reason of insanity plea today. No motion raising competency either. That is significant. Why? Because under the California Penal Code, you are supposed to raise defenses like NGRI at the arraignment. Now, under the statute, for good cause shown, you can do that at a later date. But they should have done it today. Now, does that mean it's forever waived? No. Can they probably get good cause shown? Yes, Judge, we're the public defender's office. We just got on the case. We were doing our due diligence and our research and hiring experts, and we weren't able to do that by that time. And although we were concerned, we maybe just didn't have enough information. But now that we have more information, we want to ask for leave of the court to file a not guilty by insanity plea. That could happen. But more importantly, there was no competency. Remember, the proceedings have to stop if the defense counsel believes that the defendant cannot participate in his defense, or maybe is so psychotic that he doesn't even understand the roles of the individuals in the courtroom. Like, what is the role of the prosecutor? What's the role of the judge? What's the jury supposed to do? What are the elements of defense? What are the maximum penalties? All right. But you have to have a defendant that can assist in his defense. Apparently, the public defenders don't believe that there's anything that they see at this point that rises to the level where they say, I think this guy is not competent. Now, it could be because he's on medications and they're leveling out his dosages of whatever he's on right now. But clearly, the public defenders didn't have a reason to raise that issue today. So a lot of the hype about, oh, he's not competent. He's basically delusional, catatonic. Remember all those words that were being thrown about? You didn't hear any of those words today. And he appeared, right? And who knows? Let's have this proceed to the preliminary hearing. Now, more than likely, there'll be an offer and it'll be waived for the preliminary hearing. And the defense is going to try to get mitigation to the prosecutors to try and work out some sort of a plea bargain, probably something that will result in some sort of lengthy prison sentence, but yet maybe with the opportunity of being able to get out someday. But don't hold your breath on that actually taking place. It's going to be a big number. 40, 60 years is my guess if there's a plea bargain in this particular case, even with mental health issues. And the autopsy findings, does it shed some new light on Bryan Kohberger's motive in the Idaho student murders? Well, some forensic analysis reveals pattern of injuries that experts say point to a planned psychosexual attack disrupted by unforeseen circumstances. Shocking, I know. Haven't I been saying that for the last several years? Yes, but at least the experts are saying it, therefore it must be true. Anyway, newly released autopsy reports from the November 13th, 2022 killings of the 4 University of Idaho students have provided some fresh insight into the nature of the attack carried out by Bryan Kohberger, offering what one prominent forensic psychologist describes as the clearest indication yet of the perpetrator's intended target and underlying motivation. Now, the documents detail more than 150 stab wounds inflicted by the K-bar knife during an assault that police estimate lasted approximately 15 minutes. Now, a guy by the name of Dr. Gary Brucato, a forensic psychologist who co-led the development of the Columbia University mass murder database, the varying severity and distribution of unique injuries across the victims suggest Kohberger entered the residence at 1122 King Road with a specific individual in mind only for his plan to unravel rapidly. Kohberger was sentenced, obviously, to life imprisonment in July of 2025 after being convicted of the murders for Madison Mogen, Kayla Gonsalves, Zaina Kernodle, and Ethan Chapin by his guilty plea. Anyway, investigators have long maintained that the killings were not originally intended to claim all 4 lives, with evidence indicating that Kohberger proceeded directly to the 3rd floor bedroom shared by Mogen and Gonsalves. Now, Brucato's examination of the autopsy records leads him to conclude that Mogen was the primary target. She sustained 28 stab wounds, including injuries to the scalp, face, neck, chest, and upper extremities, along with damage to internal organs and major blood vessels. In contrast, Gonsalves received at least 38 stab wounds, accompanied by additional blunt force trauma and asphyxial injuries that left her face severely disfigured. He says the lower number of wounds on the presumed target is consistent with an initial, more controlled assault, he says. The individual who interrupted the scenario, Gonsalves, appears to have provoked a far more intense response. Now, Kernodle, who was awake on the 2nd floor at the time and had recently received a food delivery, is believed to have encountered Kohberger while he was still in the upper bedroom. Her autopsy documents 67 stab wounds, the highest total, concentrated on defensive areas of the body and indicative of a prolonged struggle. Now, blood on the soles of her feet suggests she attempted to evade or resist her attacker. Chapin, sleeping in the same room as Kernodle, suffered 17 stab wounds, the fewest of any of the victims. Now, Brucato interprets the escalating wound count among the female victims, Mogen, Gonsalves, and Kernodle, as evidence of Kohberger's growing loss of control. The progression reflects increasing disorganization as the situation deviated from the planned fantasy, he explains. Anyway, the presence of a male victim required only practical elimination rather than the intense rage directed at the women who disrupted the intended scenario. The psychologist further persists that the attack aligned with a psychosexual fantasy involving sleeping or unconscious victims, supported by digital evidence recovered from Kohberger's devices. Forensic analysis previously revealed searches related to non-consensual acts, voyeurism, and home invasions alongside an interest in serial killers. Brucato noted that Kohberger's repeated nighttime surveillance of the residence, documented on at least 23 occasions via cell phone data, demonstrated the meticulous preparation, yet an apparent failure to anticipate human responses. The doctor says that individuals who commit such crimes for the fulfillment of a fantasy frequently require repetition to refine the experience. And Brucato said that had he not been apprehended, it is reasonable to conclude that additional offenses would have occurred. Now, the revelations arrived more than 3 years after the crime and 7 months after Kohberger began serving his sentence. And while the exact sequence of events remains subject to ongoing, analysis and review, the autopsy details underscore the targeted yet chaotic character of the assault. And police and other authorities continue to emphasize that no definitive motive has been conclusively established beyond the patterns now illuminated by the forensic examination. Clearly, there was a targeted individual, Gonsalves Mogan. And once again, things go wrong. Like we talked about in the Nancy Guthrie case, right? Sometimes people go in, they're going to do a quick little burglary. Something goes wrong. They panic. In this particular case, Kohberger panicked and killed 3 other individuals than his intended target. Just like in the Nancy Guthrie case, you could panic and have your partner out in the car outside and say, let's take the little old lady with you. The Kouri Richins trial. That's right. The trial regarding the alleged fentanyl poisoning allegations. That's right. So Kouri Richins, the mother of 3 from Camas, Utah, who stands accused of fatally poisoning her husband, Eric Richens, with fentanyl back in 2022 to secure financial benefits, including life insurance proceeds. The prosecutors alleged that she engaged in forgery and fraudulent insurance claims following his death. Now, Richens has pled not guilty to the charges that include aggravated murder, attempted criminal homicide, 2 counts of fraudulent insurance claims, and forgery. Now, the jury trial that's taking place in Summit County, Utah, there at the district court, entered its 3rd day as of today, and earlier proceedings featured testimony from family members of the victim and first responders who responded to the scene on the night that Eric Richens died. On Wednesday, the focus shifted to Chelsea Gibson, a lead crime scene technician with the Summit County Sheriff's Office, who detailed her multiple visits to the residence to document and collect evidence. Gibson described recovering items such as a cell phone belonging to both spouses. She prepared a 3D scan of the home layout. Prescription medication bottles were obtained. THC's gummies stored out of the children's reach were documented, and contents of a safe containing a firearm, ammunition, and cash. She noted the presence of bloodied sheets from the master bedroom floor where the victim was found, and confirmed that no obvious drug paraphernalia was visible upon initial arrival. Now, the defense attorney, Catherine Nestor, conducted an extensive cross-examination, probing evidence, handling protocols, potential contamination risks, the placement of items such as a wallet on the nightstand, and the fact that certain prescription bottles had not undergone fentanyl testing. Now, the proceedings included procedural discussions regarding the admissibility of a 911 call and instructions to the jury not to speculate on unrelated matters. The trial is scheduled to resume tomorrow. It was kind of a short day. Court didn't really give a whole lot of reason why it was a short day, but we'll have to wait and see if something breaks tomorrow and that we didn't know about today. Next, new evidence in the brutal murder and dismemberment of 14-year-old Celeste Rivas. That's right. And the suspect, well, they're looking at that David guy that spells his name with a 4. So in a significant development that sheds new light on one of Los Angeles' most disturbing unsolved cases, well, newly unsealed court records confirms that recording artist David Burke, known professionally as David, that's D4VD, has been designated the principal target of the Los Angeles County Grand Jury investigating the murder and dismemberment of 14-year-old Celeste Rivas Hernandez. Now, the documents filed in support of out-of-state subpoenas served on Burke's family members in Texas detail the gruesome discovery of the teenager's remains and underscores the central role police attribute to the 20-year-old singer. Now remember, no charges have been filed against Burke or any other individual as of this date, and the grand jury proceedings obviously remain confidential until and if there is an indictment returned. So what do we know so far? Now, according to the filings, Rivas Hernandez's body was located on September 8th of 2025 after a tow yard manager alerted police to a strong odor of decomposition emanating from the Tesla sedan that had been impounded days earlier. The vehicle, coincidentally, was registered to Mr. Burke. Upon obtaining a search warrant, detectives opened the front trunk and observed a black cadaver bag covered in insects and emanating a pronounced smell of decay. Inside the first bag were the victim's severely decomposed head and torso. A second black bag beneath it contained her dismembered arms and legs. The condition of the remains indicated prolonged exposure, consistent with law enforcement sources' earlier assessment that the teenager may have died in the spring of 2025, more than a year after she was last seen alive in April of 2024. So what's the deal with the family subpoenas and the legal battle going on in Texas? So prosecutors have sought to compel testimony from Burke's parents, DeWad and Colleen Burke, and his brother Caleb, all residents of Texas. The family challenged the subpoenas in a Texas court, arguing that the materials provided failed to demonstrate how their testimony would be material and necessary to this investigation in regards to their son. And then on February 2nd, a Texas judge rejected those challenges and ordered the witnesses to appear in Los Angeles during the week of February 9th. Now, it remains unknown whether the family members ultimately testified, as grand jury proceedings are obviously conducted in secret. So what do we know thus far? So law enforcement sources previously indicated that Burke has not cooperated with detectives from the Los Angeles Police Department, and they've executed a search warrant at the Hollywood Hills residence associated with the singer, and they removed multiple bags and items of potential things of evidentiary value. The residence is located near the street where the Tesla was sighted and later impounded. Now, in a related development last month, one of Burke's acquaintances, streamer Neo Langston, was arrested after failing to appear before the same grand jury as a witness. That's right, you can be held in contempt for not appearing on a subpoena. Then we also have the Los Angeles County Department of Medical Examiner that previously sealed public details of the case in November of 2025, citing the active investigation. And at that time, the official cause of death had not been determined. So what's going on? The court records had remained under seal during the secret grand jury phase until Burke's families contested the subpoena, prompting their partial release through the Texas proceedings. Now, private investigator Steve Fisher made portions of this newly public file available on social media earlier this week, prompting renewed public attention. And police continue to treat the case as a homicide investigation involving possible multiple participants in both the death and the subsequent disposal of the victims' bodies. Now, detectives have not released any additional information on potential motives or any other names as it relates to persons of interest. So the emergence of these documents is marks the most detailed public disclosure to date regarding the physical evidence and the direction of the probe. Now, as the grand jury works proceeds, further developments, including possible indictments, are anticipated hopefully in the coming weeks. So we will have to wait and see. Clearly, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure we probably should talk to Mr. Burke and his friends, right? It's his car. What do we say all the time, ladies and gentlemen? There are no coincidences when it comes to criminal law. Let's see. Your girlfriend, underage, missing, found in your car, in the trunk of your Tesla, decomposing, dismembered. You refuse to talk. Certainly you have a right to remain silent and you're given the presumption of innocence. But there's a lot of coincidences there, wouldn't you think, ladies and gentlemen? I mean, certainly there could be a completely plausible explanation. Perhaps Mr. Burke was out of town. Maybe somebody did something terrible and tried to frame Mr. Burke. I guess these are possibilities that the prosecution will have to try to make sure that, they're not going to use as a possible defense. But, usually when there's a situation like this and all the coincidental points point to one particular person, you have to be able to prove it. Not just, we talked about this before, it's not just what you think, not what you believe. It only matters what you prove, what you know took place. That's right, the Nancy Guthrie story. Police investigating the disappearance of the 84-year-old Nancy Guthrie have detained a man observed driving past her home up to 100 times in a blue SUV, stopping repeatedly near a memorial erected outside the property. Now, the incident occurred during the fourth week of the search for the mother of NBC Today Show co-host Savannah Guthrie. Now, Nancy Guthrie, who was last seen by family members on January 31st, following a dinner and a game night at her eldest daughter's home, and then ultimately she failed to appear for church services on February 1st. When the police checked it out and family went to the home and checked it out, they found drops of blood that were discovered on the porch, and a doorbell camera footage captured an unidentified individual wearing a ski mask at her door in the early morning hours. Her pacemaker ceased transmitting data to linked devices shortly thereafter, obviously prompting her family to report her missing. Well, the Pima County Sheriff's Department deputies and FBI agents continue the active search, and though the Bureau has relocated to primarily command the post in Phoenix, more than 100 miles away, while maintaining a presence in Tucson. And then on February 27th, agents were observed re-examining areas of the home and the lawn that had previously been searched. And the family has offered a reward for up to $1 million for information leading to her recovery. And they've donated another $500,000 to the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children because they want to make sure there are resources. Cases can be publicized that maybe don't get the attention that Nancy Guthrie's disappearance has got. A media photographer and reporters first noticed this suspect staring at a photograph of Nancy Guthrie on his phone while slowly circling the residence. Law enforcement stopped the vehicle. The driver failed a sobriety test and was arrested on a DUI charge. No direct link to the disappearance has been established. Now, obviously, neighbors are concerned about the security, resulting in obviously a sharp increase in installations of reinforced panic rooms and even hidden safe spaces, with local firms reporting hundreds of new inquiries since the abduction became public. Now, Savannah Guthrie addressed the situation in an emotional Instagram video stating, "We need to know where she is. We need her to come home. We also know that she may be lost. She may already be gone. And if you've been waiting and you haven't been sure, let this be your sign to please come forward." So just another update. As you can see, the smallest little things regarding this case become news because people want some resolution for this case. They want this case to be solved.